And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I'm commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom. Might want to twist that just a little bit right there. Shabbat shalom to everyone worshiping with us at home. It's a blessing to be here today. Amen. All right. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about one of those empowering things. You might say that I'm going to give you one of those power tools today for you to put in your own personal toolbox for life. You know, those kind of tools that help us tackle the tough jobs of living. Anybody relate to that? Yeah. All right. Now, we all want to be empowered, amen? All right. Well, we say we do. We say we do. But the problem with many of us is that when we get a new power tool for life, we never bother to plug it in. So, sometimes we don't even take it out of the package. All right? And if you don't use it, you've made it useless, right? That's right. So, I've had a couple of things that happened to me to bring this subject up, and I'd like to share it with you. And what I'm going to talk about today will be hard for some of you to swallow. I actually have read that this thing that said that in most cases, the people that would benefit the most from a philosophy like this would likely find it of little use for them at all. And that the ones who would appreciate it would likely only benefit marginally. Well, if that's as good as it gets, why are you wasting our time there, Stan? And that's a good question. And here's the answer. You see, the reason that the folks in the second group would only benefit marginally is because it will only be like a refresher course for them. They're already benefiting from it. My hope is to help the rest of us into recognizing the power of accepting this concept that I'm going to share. Maybe help someone move into the second group. You see, once we come into the realization of what I'm about to share, you can then move into action rather than reaction. Do you realize that most of us react to life? Yeah, most of us react to life, and we will always have to react to things. But there are many opportunities for us to be proactive instead if we will only learn to be proactive where we can. Now, do we all know what it means to be proactive? All right, just in case. It means to take action in anticipation of something happening rather than taking action after something happens. For instance, it's proactive to change the oil in our vehicles and keep them in good running condition. It is reactive to wait till the black smoke starts belching out of the tailpipe and having to deal with that just before the car dies. All right, that's being reactive and dealing with that. So you see the difference, right? Okay, here is the empowering thing that I want to share with you, and this applies to all of us, each and every one of us. For the most part, when it comes to where you are in your life, you are exactly where you wanted yourself to be. Huh? That's right, you are exactly where you wanted yourself to be. You finally flipped your lid, Stan. You finally lost it and ran off in the ditch. How can you say such a thing? Everything in my life is backwards and upside down. Even my feet smell and my nose runs. Well, that's upside down and backwards, isn't it? My husband is no good. My wife hates me. Our kids are in jail. I hate my job. My boss is a tyrant. I had a terrible childhood. My dad ran off and left me to tend to my 3 brothers and sisters while my mom had to work 3 jobs to take care of everybody. I was betrayed by my spouse. My loved one was killed by a drunk driver. My child died from brain cancer. I have a terminal illness. How can you say that I'm exactly where I wanted myself to be? First of all, let me clear something up. I'm not talking about the things that you or I have no control over. None of us go through life without heartache and hardship. It's part of life. If you're simply walking around looking at the flowers and the butterflies and an airplane crashes into you, there's not a whole lot that you could do about that, amen? All right? So we're in agreement that sometimes bad things happen to us, right? All right? I'm not talking about that. But what if the place where you're walking around looking at the flowers and the butterflies just happens to be on the approach path runway for the county airport on the other side of a sign that says no admittance beyond this point? That's what I'm talking about. You see, those are not the same thing. When bad things just happen to us versus doing things that get us into trouble. If the place where you decided that you wanted to walk around and look at the flowers and the butterflies, and I want for us to pay particular attention to a couple of words I'm going to use today. One of them is want. Now in the South we say want. We pronounce W-A-N-T the same way that most people pronounce W-O-N-T. All right? And so Northerners and people that live in other regions, they've just got to pay attention and take it in context, figure out what we're saying here. All right. Now I'm going to try to say want. And another word is desire. Another word is desire. If the place where you decided that you wanted, hear that word? To walk around and look at the flowers and the butterflies is next to the runway on the other side of the sign, when the plane crashes into you, well, you were exactly where you wanted to be. I did not say that you would like the results of what comes from getting what you wanted. I said for the most part, and remember, I said that to start with. For the most part, you were exactly where you wanted to be, exactly where your wants took you. Got that? But it's not always a bad thing, see? And I don't want to give that impression that it's always a bad thing. If the place where you decided that you wanted to walk around and look at flowers and butterflies happened to be at Callaway Gardens, and your boyfriend drops down on one knee and asks you to marry him, you were exactly where you wanted yourself to be. And my daughter-in-law Ashley can attest to that. Because she was exactly where she wanted to be when that happened. All right? That was perfect timing. All right. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and talk about bad things the whole time. You see, but oftentimes we fantasize what we would want in our minds. All right? How many of you ever do that? You fantasize about what you would like in your mind? Yeah. But instead, we don't really do the things that will bring us to that thing that we imagined. We want to do something else instead. We want to do something rather than what gets us there to that thing we imagine. All right? We do things that make the thing that we imagined impossible to attain until we decide that we want to do those things that will make it come to pass. I'm going to give you some examples. I spent a long time sitting in the recliner eating ice cream. I don't mean a long time one day. I mean, I spent a lot of days sitting in the recliner eating ice cream. You know why I did it? Because I wanted to eat ice cream and sit in the recliner and, Now, I imagine, boy, I sure would like to be in shape. I really would like to be in shape. I'd like to get that blood pressure down and all that. But what I really wanted to do was sit in a recliner and eat ice cream more than I wanted to do the things that would get me in better shape. And I don't know about you ladies, all right, but we gentlemen, especially once you get in your 40s or a little more, we typically have 2 pairs of pants. See, they're laughing because they know what I'm about to say. We have 2 pairs of pants. We have the big pants, and then we have the pants that we'd like to wear if we weren't wearing the big pants. Okay? And then what happens sometimes is we hit this red line where it's becoming apparent that the big pants are about to turn into the pants that we wish we were wearing when we weren't wearing the big pants. All right, now this, so what do? We make changes and we start doing the things, we start wanting to do the things that will help us get to the place that we imagined that we wanted to be. This happens with money. It happens with everything. Everybody familiar with Dave Ramsey? Financial Peace University, the guy on the radio talks about, well, what does he say? He says, live like nobody else today so that you can live like nobody else tomorrow. He's talking about changing your wants. Because see, when we want to spend our money on movies or cars or electronics or musical instruments or you name it, jewelry, kind of keeps us where, we're doing what we want to do, but it keeps us from going where we think we want to be. See, and so we're doing the things that makes it impossible to do that. Same thing with our health, like I just mentioned with the big pants and little pants. Relationships. When we say we want a good relationship with our spouse, but if we instead of don't put our spouse first in things when we're living life, well, guess what? We find out that we wind up not with that relationship that we would really want, and so we wind up being on the corner of the rooftop. All right, now today we're going to look at some folks in the Scripture. And listen, folks in the Scripture, they're no different than we are. They're really not. Everybody gets what they wanted themselves into. For the most part. Note that I did not say that they necessarily got the results that they would like to have had. You see, oftentimes we want results without consequences for our actions. So when we look into Scripture, it is rife with examples of people who were just like us that made bad choices because they wanted this thing. But it's also full of examples of people who made good or tove choices because they wanted this other thing. So let's look at some examples. I want to talk about David for just a minute. David was a man after Elohim's own heart. All right? But David wanted Bathsheba. All right, now, he was not a man after Elohim's heart when this got a hold of him. And I want to share this with you because righteous people have to be on guard. All right, righteous people have to be on guard. Now, he wanted Bathsheba. He also decided that in order to get Bathsheba, because guess what? After that happened, Bathsheba's pregnant. All right? Now what does he want? Now he wants to cover up the situation. All right? You hear me using that word want? All right? And then he wanted to bring Uriah home so he can make it look like that's Uriah's baby, so that Uriah could raise David's baby. All right? That's what he wanted. Well, then and I actually think that Uriah knew something was up. I think Uriah knew something was up. But then when Uriah wouldn't go home, David wanted him killed so he could bring Bathsheba in his house and make it look like everything's nice and copacetic. That's right. All right, so and David had some bad results. Because was it against the Torah for him to take Bathsheba? Yeah. Was it wrong for him to get Uriah killed? But you know what? David wound up exactly where he wanted himself to be. And that's the name of this message. You are exactly where you wanted yourself to be. Now, Nathan the prophet tells David what his wants are going to get him. Look at 2 Samuel chapter 12. Second Samuel chapter 12. Going to be on page 326 in the 98 ISR. We're going to start reading in verse 9. 2 Samuel 12, verse 9. This is what Nathan says to David, to the man after Elohim's own heart. Why have you despised the word of Yahweh to do evil in his eyes? Boy, that's a strong question to ask a man after Elohim's own heart. Why have you despised the word of Yahweh to do evil in his eyes? You have killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and his wife you took to be your wife, and you have killed him with the sword of the children of Ammon, and now the sword does not turn aside from your house, because you have despised me and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Okay, that's not what David probably had in mind when he was pursuing his wants. All right, this is what his wants have gotten him to. All right, now, and we're going to look in the next chapter. And we're not just going to talk about David, but see, we're going to talk about David's children too. Because, well, you'll see as we go along how our wants factor into all this. 2 Samuel 13, verse 1. And after this it came to be that Absalom, the son of David, had a lovely sister whose name was Tamar. And Amnon, son of David, loved her. And Amnon was distressed, even to become sick, because of his sister Tamar. For she was a maiden, and it was hard in the eyes of Amnon to do whatever to her. All right? This is Amnon's half-sister, Absalom's full sister. And Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab. Remember Jonadab, the son of Shema, David's brother. Now, Jonadab was a very wise man. And he said to him, "Why are you, the sovereign son, becoming thinner day after day? Explain it to me." And Amnon said to him, "I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister." And Jonadab said to him, "Lie down on your bed and pretend to be sick. And when your father comes to see you, say to him, 'Please let my sister Tamar come and give me food, and make the food before my eyes, so that I see it and eat it from her hand.'" All right. Now, Amnon wanted to take Jonadab's advice, which he does here. All right. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be sick. So he wanted to deceive. Right? Is he doing this against his will? No. And when the sovereign came to see him, Amnon said to the sovereign, "Please let Tamar, my sister, come and make a couple of cakes for me before my eyes, so that I eat from her hand." And David sent to Tamar to the house, saying, please go to the house of your brother Amnon and make food for him. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house while he was lying down, and she took dough and kneaded it, and made cakes before his eyes, and baked the cakes. And she took the pan and turned them out before him. But he refused to eat. And Amnon said, make everyone go away from me. And they all went out from him. And Amnon said to Tamar, bring the food into the bedroom that I eat from your hand. And Tamar took the cakes which she had made and brought them to Amnon, her brother, in the bedroom. And she brought them to him to eat. And he took hold of her and said to her, come lie with me, my sister. And she answered him, no, my brother, do not humble me, for it is not done so in Israel. Do not do this wickedness. And where could I take my shame? And you would be like one of the fools in Israel. Now please, speak to the sovereign, for he would not withhold me from you. But he would not listen to her voice. And being stronger than she, he humbled her and lay with her. I guess that's what he wanted to do, huh? She's in that situation right now where sometimes other people do things to us. This was one of those things that was outside of her control. But Amnon's doing what he wants to do. All right? Verse 14. But he would not listen to her voice, and being stronger than she, he humbled her and lay with her. All right? Is rape against the Torah? Yes, it is. All right? But he wanted his sister more than he wanted to obey the Torah. Let's see if Amnon starts keeping the Torah after his first sin. 13, verse 15. Amnon then hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, arise, go. And she said to him, no, for this evil of sending me away is worse than the other you have done to me. But he would not listen to her, and he called his young man serving him and said, now, put this one out away from me, and bolt the door behind her. And she had on a long coat, for the sovereign's maiden daughters wore such garments. And his servant put her out and bolted the door behind her. And Tamar put ashes on her head, and she tore her long coat. That would be her coat of maidenhood, of a sovereign's daughter, that was on her, and put her hand on her head and went away, sniffling a little, crying bitterly. And Absalom, her brother, said to her, has Amnon your brother been with you? But now, keep silent, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this matter to heart. So Tamar remained in the house of her brother Absalom, but was, what's that next word? Ruined. And Sovereign David heard all these reports, and he was very wroth. So, I want to point out some things that David did. First of all, David got really mad. It says so right there. David heard all this, and he was very wroth. All right. Parents, have we ever gotten really mad at one of our children? Two of our children? Well, guess what? David got really mad. But guess what else? David may have gotten really mad, very wroth, but there's no indication that he did anything to hold Amnon accountable. He just got really mad. Whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-doo. I'll kick the cat off the front porch and just show everybody how mad I am. That's what I'll do. Poor old cat. Because I'm mad. I'm really mad. I'm mad about this. But there's no indication that he did anything whatsoever to hold Amnon accountable for his sin against Yahweh or Tamar or David. And you know what? He ruined her. He ruined this girl. David got really mad. This was no small thing either. He ruined her. In other words, the king and the father did not seek out to make sure that Yahweh's right rulings were carried out. He did not want to take proper care of Tamar. Hear that word want? He did not want to take proper care of Tamar, nor punish his firstborn son. He just got mad. And Tamar remained in Absalom's house. David did what he wanted to do. He wanted to be mad. Verse 22. And Absalom spoke to his brother Amnon neither good nor evil, for Absalom hated Amnon because he had humbled his sister Tamar. And it came to be after 2 years that Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal Hatzor, which is beside Ephraim, and Absalom invited all the sons of the sovereign. Absalom invited all the sons of the king. And Absalom came to the sovereign and said, See, your servant has sheep shearers. Please let the sovereign and his servants go with your servant. But the sovereign said to Absalom, No, my son, let us not all go now, lest we be too heavy on you. And he urged him, but he would not go. And he blessed him. And Absalom said, Well, if not, please let my brother Amnon go with us. And the sovereign said to him, Why should he go with you? I'm sorry, why should he go with you? You see, David was suspicious, I think, that Absalom had something up. And he was up to no good. And he knew that Absalom had not spoken good or bad to Amnon in 2 years. Verse 27. And Absalom urged him, Oh, come on, Dad. You never let us have any fun. Anybody relate to that? So he let Amnon and all of the sons of the sovereign go with him. See, David wanted to please his child. He couldn't say no to his kid. He wanted his child to like him. And that's a problem that we wind up getting into sometimes, wanting our children to like us. All right? But now, watch this. This, what we're about to read, speaks to the pride of Absalom. See, we've heard these words before. Verse 28. And Absalom had commanded his servants, saying, Watch, and when the heart of Amnon is glad with wine, and I shall say to you, Smite Amnon, then kill him. Do not be afraid. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and brave. Where have we heard that before? That's what Yahweh said to Joshua, isn't it? Huh. Sounds mighty haughty when you think about it that way. Then the servants of Absalom did to Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Guess what? Amnon was exactly where his wants had brought him. He certainly didn't like the outcome, but he was exactly in the place where his desire had led him. If he had wanted to keep the Torah instead of wanting forbidden union with his sister, he would not have gotten killed for raping his sister. Amen. He was where he wanted himself to be. And do you know what else? Parents who want to be your kids' friends. David loved Amnon to death. He loved him to death. Absalom too, that's right. We'll get into that. Then all the sons of the sovereign rose up, each one mounted his mule and fled. And it came to be, while they were on their way, that news came to David, saying, Absalom has smitten all the sons of the sovereign, and not one of them is left. And the sovereign rose up and tore his garments, and lay on the ground. And all his servants stood by with their garments torn. And Jonadab, son of Shema, David's brother, remember Jonadab, answered and said, Do not let my master say they have killed all the young men, the sons of the sovereign, for only Amnon is dead. For by the command of Absalom, this has been appointed from the day that he humbled his sister Tamar. See, isn't it interesting that Jonadab is the one that came up with the scheme for Amnon to get access to his sister? Little snake. And now, let not my master the sovereign take the matter to his heart, to think that all the sons of the sovereign are dead, for only Amnon is dead. And Absalom fled, and the young man who was watching lifted up his eyes and looked and saw many people were coming from the way behind him on the side of the hill. Then Jonadab said to the sovereign, Look, the sons of the sovereign are coming. As your servant said, so it is. And it came to be, as soon as he had finished speaking, that look, the sons of the sovereign came, and they lifted up their voice and wept, and the sovereign too, and all the servants wept very bitterly. But Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, sovereign of Geshur, and David mourned for his son all the days. So Absalom fled and went to Geshur, and was there 3 years. Sovereign David then longed to go to Absalom, for he had been comforted concerning Amnon because he was dead. So, Absalom basically got sent to his room. He still had his gaming system and his smartphone and his cable TV and his Facebook, and I guess they're all using Snapchat now, is that right? And Instagram, yeah. And his friends could still come by and hang out with him, you name it, you know. David had gotten over Amnon being dead, and he longed to go to Absalom. And we know the rest of the story, right? David has to flee for his life because he nearly loses the kingdom because of Absalom trying to take it over. Absalom goes in and humbles all of David's concubines that had left to take care of the house when David fled. And he pitched a tent on top of the roof to take them all in there to defile them so that everybody could see. You see, part of this is David wants to be his children's pal. He wants to be their pal, so to speak. And this wound up causing him lots of problems. Right? So in essence, David was exactly where he had wanted his way into. Do you understand what I mean when I say that? His wants got him where he was rather than wanting to correct them. And this is probably not something that just started in David's house. It's probably something that's probably historically been going on for a long time. And this is the first time where we read about this in this story of Amnon and Tamar and Absalom. But, and this is not a good thing here, but like I said, it's not always a bad thing. But being where we want to be can be a good thing because I want us to be empowered. And remember, that's what I talked about at the beginning. This is about being empowered, remember? Right? So that we can want our way into better things. Righteousness, finances, relationships, you name it. You ever heard of a guy named Noah? You know, Noah wanted to do right in the eyes of Yahweh. Noah wanted to walk perfectly before Yahweh. Noah wanted his way into being saved, him and his house with him, when the rest of the world got destroyed. Right? Let's look at Genesis chapter 6. Bereshit chapter 6. Going to be on page 6, oddly enough. It's not so far into the book that it's getting away from that yet. Verse 9. This is the genealogy of Noach. Noach was a righteous man, perfect in his generations. Noach walked with Elohim. And Noach brought forth 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence. And Elohim looked upon the earth and saw that it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And Elohim said to Noach, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and see, I am going to destroy them from the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with tar. And this is how you are to make it. The length of the ark is 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a window for the ark and complete it to a cubit from above. And set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. And see, I myself am bringing a flood waters on the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under the heavens. All that is on the earth is to die. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you, and all the living creatures of all flesh, 2 of each, you are to bring into the ark to keep them alive with you, a male and a female. Of the birds after their kind, and the cattle after their kind, and all the creeping creatures of the earth after their kind, 2 of each are to come to you to keep them alive. And for you, take of all your food, all the food that is eaten, and gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. And Noah evidently wanted to do what Yahweh said for him to do, because it says, did according to all that Yahweh commanded him, so he did. And Noah was exactly where he wanted himself to be. And that's just the way it is, folks. That's just the way it is. Now, Paul wrestled with the same kind of thing. Look in Romans chapter 7. I'm telling you, all the people in the Scripture are just like we are. They wrestle with the same kind of things. Romans chapter 7. Going to be on page 1092. Going to start reading in verse 14. For we know that the Torah is spiritual, but I am fleshly, sold under sin. For what I work I know not. For what I wish, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. But if I do what I do not wish, I agree with the Torah that it is good. And now it is no longer I that work it, but the sin dwelling in me. See, Paul's talking about his wants here. What he knows what he ought to do, and what spiritually minded he wants to do. But in the flesh, he goes after these other wants. Verse 18, for I know that in me, that is my flesh, dwells no good. For the wish is present with me, or desire, but to work the good I do not find. For the good that I wish to do, I do not do. But the evil I do not wish to do, this I practice. And if I do that which I do not wish, it is no longer I who work it, but the sin dwelling in me. I find therefore this law, that when I wish to do the good, that the evil is present with me. For I delight in the Torah of Elohim according to the inward man. But I see another law in my members, battling against the Torah of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. Wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? Thanks to Elohim, through Yeshua Messiah our Master. So then, with the mind I truly serve the Torah of Elohim, but with my flesh the law of sin. All right, can you relate to that? Can you relate to that? All right. Now, it doesn't mean to stay there. And it's just Paul's recognizing, I deal with this. I have the same problems. But what do we do about it? 2 Corinthians 10. Page 1123. Second Corinthians 10, starting in verse 3. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not fight according to the flesh. For the weapons we fight with are not fleshly, but mighty in Elohim for overthrowing strongholds, overthrowing reasonings, and every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim. Look at this, it's very important. Taking captive every thought. If that's not underlined in your Scripture, you should underline that in your Scripture. Taking captive every thought to make it obedient to Messiah. And being ready to punish all disobedience when our obedience is complete. See, Paul's talking about changing your wants there. Paul's talking about thinking about things, bringing them into obedience to Messiah, and changing your wants. Now, let me say this. Deep thought is not an easy thing to do. It's not for me anyway. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of effort to have deep thought. This is not to be confused with daydreaming or allowing your mind to simply wander on an adventure to see where it winds up. All right? No, really. Sometimes revelation comes from things like that, when you're just letting your mind go and you're imagining, and new ideas come from these, and there's nothing wrong with allowing our minds to wander. But we should not confuse this with deep thought. Deep thought takes effort, and taking every thought captive certainly does. But you see, the mind's like other parts of the body. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger it becomes, those hard tasks become easier and easier to accomplish. Now, I want to share a story with you. A few years back, I met a very dear childhood friend of mine. His name is Greg. I'm not going to tell his last name on here because I might tell something that he doesn't want shared. Met him for lunch, and we had this reunion, and it was two kids who were all grown up who hadn't seen each other in 37 years. Okay, we're talking about almost 4 decades. Okay, we hadn't seen each other in 37 years. And I got to tell you something. This was a very, very precious reunion for me. As kids, we had done so many things together. And we were really very close friends. And this meeting, though like I said, it had been nearly 4 decades since we had even spoken with each other, this meeting was not awkward at all, and it was a great reunion. It was a blessed day. And I cannot, in this short period of time, begin to express all the wonderful memories that these two boys, now men of half century old, share with one another. And as we talked, we began to realize that we had actually only been friends together for about 2.5 years. From just before the 7th grade, they moved in the summer in our neighborhood before we started 7th grade, through the 8th grade, and they left after that. All right? And that's when his family moved away. And upon realizing as men the seeming brevity of our childhood spent together, Greg said, "Man, we sure did a lot of stuff." And my mind just started whizzing through all the memories as I thought, that's all? Only 2.5 years? And with genuine amazement of this realization, I said, we sure did. We sure did. And that's because we spent so much time living life and making our own adventures and finding things in life to enjoy. Building ramps and jumping bikes, going fishing, going swimming, going up to the lake with his parents, going on hikes, spending the night at each other's house. A bunch of stuff that I'm not going to say in front of this camera. And there's other stuff that I'm not going to say when it's off, because I'm not sure that the statute of limitations has run out. I will tell this one, though. Fireworks used to be illegal in Georgia. It's only been a couple of years since they haven't been, or since they have been legal. And one time, and you got to remember what age we were, and one time, see, Greg had this older brother, all right? And there was a couple of other older boys down the street, and they'd get together and do mischief, And they were out there shooting off fireworks, and we weren't invited, We weren't invited, see, all right? And then I don't remember who came up with it, but somebody came up with this great idea. You see, I had this amplifier that was about this tall. I don't know if folks at home can see it, but it was big. It's a pretty good size amplifier. And I had this wah-wah pedal. I don't know if you know what a wah-wah pedal is, but this particular wah-wah pedal had a button on it where it'd make a siren sound. And we took that, and it was nighttime, you know, and we took that amp, we put it in a wheelbarrow, and down the road we went. and we plugged that amp in and turned it way down, you know, turned it way down, and hooked that wah-wah pedal up. And the sirens used to sound different in Georgia than they do now, you know. But turn that thing on. And we get a little louder and a little louder. We turned up, and those boys heard that. They heard that siren going off, and they went running and jumping and running through the bushes and everything. And they split. Me and Greg had the best time laying up there watching them big boys get. Right? And you know, and we talked about that day. It was, you know, it was a good memory. But we were living life and making our own adventures and finding things in life to enjoy. We didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about miserable things. We were having a blast. And sometimes it seems that when we grow up, most of us forget how to do that. And so now I have to wonder just how much more life we might be living today if we spent more time living life rather than simply enduring being alive until the end comes. Y'all getting all mine? You know, 2.5 years, right? That's approximately 910 days, right? And though it flies by and slips through your fingers before you know it, that's actually a lot of days to work with. That's a lot of days to work with. Hebrews 9:27 says that it's appointed unto man once to die, and then the judgment. So the reality is there indeed is an end to it all. There is an end. But here's the question. Can I fill the next 910 days with the same kind of memories? See, I have a choice. What will I want to do? Dance in death's waiting room? Or simply stand in line? I have a choice. I have a choice. Some of you got uncomfortable once when I told you in another sermon that you had the power to change your past. And what you would have to do in order to change it. Some of you got mad when I suggested that most of our problems were from a stronghold of selfishness. And until we started paying attention to just how much trouble our selfishness was causing us, we would continue to reap the same bitter results. And that made some folks mad. Didn't change anything, but it made some folks mad. And it'll likely make some folks mad that I've suggested that you are right where you wanted yourself to be. But facts are facts. And it takes a certain level of maturity to accept this. And much of what we have today in our lives is because of the choices that we have made. And we chose this want rather than wanting that thing. It's that easy. All right? And liking the results that we're getting for the thing that we did in the moment and getting the result that comes from doing what you wanted to do are not the same thing. If you don't like the results that you're getting, then try to discipline yourself into wanting something different. All right? For instance, if you don't like having better recall of Scripture than you have, then try wanting to spend more reading Scripture time and devoting yourself to memorizing passages of Scripture than wanting to sit on Facebook or watch TV. Change your wants. You want to be closer to Yahweh? Well, then stop wanting to immerse yourself in things of the world and start wanting to immerse yourself in things of Yahweh. You'll get closer to Yahweh. If you'd like to wear the small pants, then start wanting to eat and do the things that will get you into the small pants. Would you like better finances? See how easy this is? Well, it's not easy. Simple. Simple. Then start wanting the things that create a nest egg or an investment or a better job more than whatever you're wanting to blow your money on. Because you see, you and I are exactly where we wanted ourselves to be. And if you don't like where you are, then change what you're allowing yourself to want. You know? Stop putting all the blame. This is important here. Stop putting all the blame on others, because look, you have the power to change you. You have the power to change you. You have the power to change your past. Not the past that you currently have, but the past that you will have in the days to come. When your days that you have not lived yet become the days that you have lived. Providing that Yahweh wills it, in the next 910 days, what will it be? Do you want to dance in death's waiting room for 910 days, or do you want to merely endure another 910 days standing in line waiting for your number to be called? What will it be when you look back? Because you do have a choice. We all have a choice. Now, we said at the beginning of this message that we wanted to be empowered. Do we all remember saying oh man? Yeah, you did especially. I didn't say you'd like what you want, the results of what you wanted. We said that we wanted to be empowered. Well, you've been empowered. And you have been given a power tool for your own personal toolbox for life. Take it out of the package, plug it in, and put it to use. And start taking those thoughts captive and think hard about what you're wanting. Think hard about what you're wanting. Consider carefully where your wants might take you, with good consequences or bad. Be proactive rather than reactive, because except for the things that you cannot control, we will all be exactly where we wanted ourselves to be. Yevrakeka Yahweh ba'ishmareka, ya'er Yahweh panavaleka bikuneka, yasa Yahweh panavaleka bi'asim laka shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make His face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up His face upon you and give you His complete contentment.